I remember I was 13, I was in the car with my parents, and I was listening to Jagged Little Pill, and I remember hearing, I think it was like Perfect was the first one that I listened to, and I was like, oh my God. And I went and told my music teacher like a couple days after, I was like, people can write songs like that? Like you can say stuff like that and the song would be so honest and like vulnerable like that. And I just remember like having my mind blown, and I just like completely looked at music and songwriting in a different way.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was it about that song? Was it the perfectionism theme, or was it just the idea of stream of consciousness? Or
I mean, I just think that's something that me and all of my friends had felt so acutely for so long, and I'd never heard somebody talk about it, even in general in conversation, you know, and definitely never in a song that's like, you know, so popular in popular culture. So that was, it was just mind-blowing. And just like love how you're so honest and talk about stuff that, you know, normally isn't talked about in songwriting.
Yay. Yes, you're doing the same. I'm excited. I went down many rabbit holes around you, knowing just in general, but also just, you know, because I knew I was going to meet you. So yeah, you have that beautiful stream of consciousness, wildly expressed, multiple flavored style of writing too, and it's just so exciting. It's really intriguing to lean in and just get into the layers. You know, I think so many artists that are in the public eye, yourself as, you know, are, what makes it special for me is when there are layers. You know, if I just want to be entertained for a minute, the music and the harmonics are there in your music, it's exciting. But if I want to go a little bit more profound or go into different layers, that's available too. So thanks.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna blush. I just also think it's like so, it's really like hard to like sing about what you sing about sometimes too. Maybe it's not hard for you, but just like as a listener, I was like, oh my God, you must be like so brave to have to like talk about stuff that's so vulnerable.
So I don't know what your process is like around songwriting. For me, when I first write it, it's just for myself. It's me alone in a room. And then when it's shared publicly, it's no longer mine, actually. It's still my story, and I'm really intrigued when I hear other people's interpretations of it, because sometimes it's a direct match to what my experience was. Other times it has nothing to do with where I was coming from. It's just been beautifully co-opted by whoever's listening. But the process does start with it just being, it's very intimate, literally alone, physically. So, you know, a lot of people have said to me very generously, like you just did, like, wow, that's so brave. And I wonder what part of it is brave, because I guess the sharing of it publicly, in theory, is brave. It just doesn't feel brave to me. It just feels like a mandatory experience, to the point where if I'm not doing that, if I'm not expressing myself in that way, I'd probably get sick really fast. What about you? Is it a mandatory thing? Like if you're not writing or moving or expressing or designing, do you start eating your own hand, or like how does that work for you? How's your process?
Yeah, I write all the time. Like try to write every day. I think it's just so important. I really love what you said about that. That I didn't think that it was brave. That's actually so interesting to me. But yeah, I'm
Does it feel brave when you're doing it? Do you feel like, wow, I'm brave, or are you
no,
just?
I think I'm the same way as I write solely for myself. I think if I try to like sit down at the piano and be like, I'm gonna write a song that everyone likes and that like resonates with people.
It's too head.
Oh no, it's never any good.
A disaster.
Just like try to write songs for like therapy for myself and try to like make sense of all of the, you know, feelings that are going on in my head, or you know, even if it's not that, then like to tell a story that interests me. I've been really trying to put out songs and like not, you know, realize that it's not mine anymore. I think that's super important, like what you were talking about, and try to not take, you know, other people's experiences or projections onto it personally, because that's, you know, that's the point of art. And like, can't tell you how many like songs I've listened to and been like, oh my gosh, that artist like totally wrote it for me in my situation. They never did, you know what I mean? But,
no,
like,
they did. No, they did, right?
100%. Yeah, they knew every minutia of what I was going through. But like, you know, that's what's beautiful about art is it's like you can just fill in the gaps with pieces of your own life, and that's what's so beautiful about it. And I think by like trying to feel like you can control what people, you know, project onto it, it just loses its magic.
Yeah, and it's, I feel like people in the public eye, and artists in particular, are social activists by mistake, because we're these screens upon which people project everything. They project light, they project what's wrong, they project what they hate. And my dad told me when I was really young, I think I was maybe 7, He said, "Sweetheart, there's three ways people will perceive you in the world. They're going to love you and you can do no wrong. They're going to hate you and you can do no right, or they just won't give a shit." And he's like, "It's going to be one of those three, so enjoy."
Oh my God.
So I know I've kept that in mind, because there are ultimately people who are close to us. We want to feel seen and understood, and
of course,
to some degree. But it is an invitation. Every night on stage, we're on tour right now, and it's just this invitation to whatever you see up here, whatever you're perceiving, this is for you for the next hour and a half, and it's for me. It's like I don't know what your experience is performing live, but it's like a churn. It's like just taking the energy and really kind of alchemically crunching it out of my body, but also getting it out.
It's funny you say that. I've really never played a proper show before in my life, which is kind of strange because I put out my record in quarantine.
Right. So, how was that?
Yeah. Honestly, I kind of loved it. I put out my first song, which did really well, and I didn't expect any of that sort of success so early on. And I think had I not just been doing the same thing that I had always been doing and writing songs in my bedroom, maybe I would have gotten a little more in my head about it than I did. And so it was really nice to just have that freedom to be I'm just gonna do the same thing I've always been doing, and
I'm gonna put this out and be wearing sweatpants.
Exactly.
In every screen, sweatpants.
Yeah.
So it's released, and there's no way really to anticipate anyone's receptivity. So then it was received by a lot of people in a very excited way. So how did you navigate that at first? I mean, you're still in it, obviously.
Yeah.
How did you navigate it? Was there anything that you felt you needed to do to steel yourself? Because there's a lot of energy. I mean, we can talk about fame for days, but the idea of being looked at alone is already outside of the animal experience.
Of course.
I think about that on stage, while being on camera, any award ceremony or whatever it is.
Yeah.
As an animal, we're constantly checking every room, where's the saber-toothed tiger? Am I safe? Am I safe? So all of a sudden, thousands.
Right.
It's already a suspended reality of there's something unusual about this on a purely animal level. And yet we stay at the podium, or we stay in front, and we hold that energy. And it's a lot.
I know.
So how's your body?
I think about that often.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we had sort of a similar experience where kind of had a really successful debut album, which is sort of weird. And at least for me, it was it felt super quick. It felt overnight. And, I've been working and writing songs since I was 5 years old. Tiny. It definitely wasn't overnight, but oh, I'm writing songs in my bedroom. Oh my gosh, lots of people know this song was really quick for me. And I don't know. It's a strange feeling. I feel obviously so lucky, but sometimes it just feels like it doesn't have to do with me sometimes.
It's impersonal.
Yeah, I mean, and I always think that creativity is sometimes really magical and celestial, and if an amazing song comes through you and you're a vessel for an amazing song, that's awesome, but sometimes it doesn't have everything to do with you. Sometimes you're a vessel, and sometimes even if you write a bad song, it doesn't have anything to do with you. You're kind of
just moving through.
Yeah, I try to not attach a lot of ego to it, because I think that that's important.
That's deeply wise.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I mean, it is impersonal in a way. It's almost like in some ways we're writing about the anger or the grief or the, it's not personal. That's how I see it.
What is something I think is really interesting too is that you used to be a child actor.
Yes.
And so was I, which I think is so funny and such a cool parallel.
Yeah, it's the hyphenation, right? And acting, dancing, singing, writing, painting, designing.
Yeah.
It's, and for me in the 90s especially, it was very much, stay in your lane. What are you? As though you had to be reduced and one-dimensionalized to one thing. What's exciting about now is that you can be everything.
Sure.
You can be a comedian, you can be rock and roll, you can be sweatpant bedraggled. You can be all these parts, and there's just less of this mandate of pick a lane and stay there.
Totally. I love that so much. I'm really glad that I get to work in that era of the industry.
So you have so what are some of your favorites? So dancing.
I'm a terrible dancer.
Okay, so terrible dancing.
Maybe if I go on tour, I'll get better acquainted with my body and moving like that. But I'm so bad. Are you a good dancer?
I like to move.
Yes, same.
When people are like, do you dance? I'm like, I move a lot. So I think, ultimately dancing is moving.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's so unique. Again, like the filter, every body has its own gait and way to move.
Do you think that acting for you helps you be more like in touch with your emotions in songwriting? I think like in a certain way, that's how I felt with it. Like I was so comfortable from a young age with like expressing my emotions in front of like all of these people on a set, and that's sort of like a vulnerable experience. And I think in hindsight, that sort of helps me be really comfortable with being, you know, honest in my songwriting. And actually, this brings me back to what we were talking about earlier, how you were like, I don't feel brave. I think the brave thing that I recognize in your music is how honest you are with yourself. I think not a lot of people are like that.
Yes.
And when
Nice. Thanks.
And when you are, you know, like that and show everyone how honest you are with yourself and how vulnerable you are with yourself and how you don't shy away from negative emotions.
Terrifying.
That's the brave thing, I think. I don't think sharing with people is the brave thing.
Thank you for that distinction. That's so generous.
On second thought, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and I actually think if there is a moment of bravery in my own personal experience, it's how willing I am to not lie to myself about the scary things or the ugly things or the shadow, dark, swampy things, you know?
I think that's empowering for people to hear you talk about that stuff too. It's like, I don't know.
Well, it's letting our humanity be what it is, and that you know, I'm a really big fan of inquiry, my own self-inquiry, but also just going deeper all the way to the bottom. Like, you know, whether it's me attempting to gain clarity on what my agenda really is, or what am I really hiding by being, you know, defensive, like underneath this defensiveness or under this bravado, what's really going on underneath here. So that's a kind of orientation in life, though. I think that's like a philosopher archetype.
Have you always been like that?
Yes. Have you?
I think me too.
Yeah. Like curious, observer, you know, and there are times even on stage last night in Utah where I have to pull myself out of observer a lot and remind myself that, hello, you're the one that's supposed to grab the mic, because I'll be listening to my bandmates play and they'll start the intro to Ironic and I'm just like, oh, that sounds, I should probably say it. You know, so to pull out of the listening into the...
How has touring been? I'm just curious. I've never been on tour. And also, we were talking about this earlier, I'm very excited for the day when I get to be a mom like you, and just like wondering how that is with, you know, touring with your kids and being on the road.
Well, if anyone asks you whether you want to go on tour with your 3 children during COVID, you should say no. Hell no, in fact. Touring is the greatest. And I've been touring on and off since I was 15 years old, and I am a bona fide road dog.
Yeah.
Like an alley cat road dog constitution of, you need me to sleep in that corner, I'll sleep in that corner. Let's just keep doing this. Put me in the ring, coach. So I think it's a kind of animal that loves traveling to that degree, a different country, a different city every day. But I like camping. So I often ask, like, would that person go camping with me? You know, would they be able to grab the canoe even if they had a blister and they were bleeding? Would they still be able to, like, get up the mountain with me? You know, I think in terms of that a lot. So touring is like that for me. And it's a certain kind of animal that thrives out there, and it's a lot of work, but it's so much fun and super gratifying. But then there's the law of diminishing returns. If I over-tour, I start eating my own hand, and everything gets really bad. Yeah. So it's just about touring enough. And is that something you see in your future, touring?
Oh, yeah,
touring
definitely.
like a road dog?
Yeah. I'm curious to see how that's going to work for me. I think I'm very like energetically sensitive sometimes, and I can imagine that being a sort of weird environment to acclimate yourself to. So I think it's just going to be a learning experience for me. But
got to bring all those transitional objects, your essential oil and your blankie. And but yeah, you seem to have a temperament. I mean, I don't know you that well. I just met you, but you seem to have that highly sensitive, empathic temperament, which, you know, just means there's a couple of extra considerations around high travel. And for me, it's just being exposed to that many humans with that many different energies. It's a lot, and definitely sometimes blinders are really helpful.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm excited for that day. I'm gonna go see you at the Hollywood Bowl too. I think in a couple weeks. It's like the most general question, but I feel like I'd regret it if I didn't ask you, like, if you had any advice for me growing up in this industry.
Wow. If I could have done anything differently, I would have had a few more friends around me. Period. Just a little bit more emotional support, someone where you could vent with them and process with them and then move on to the next wild ride. as opposed to, for me, I ruminated a lot. And yeah, it was lovely to journal about it, but I would have, if I could go back in time, I would have conjured a few really deeply loving, unconditionally caring people around me to just check in with me.
That
so,
hits.
do you have that?
I hope so. Yeah.
Let's make sure you have that. Yeah. And I'll send you a kit, a Survive on the Road kit for the sensitive soul.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So wonderful. Oh
so
my God.
Fun. Yeah.